Hi guys, it's Marty here, and in this video I'm going to show you how to add a simple image gallery on WordPress without needing to install any plugins or learn any coding. These image galleries are super easy to create and customize, and they also look amazing. So if you're wanting to add an image gallery to your WordPress website, this is how it's done. Okay, so first we just want to make sure we have our images saved to our computer. Then we're going to open up the WordPress editor for the page or post we're wanting to add our image gallery to, or we can create a new one if we need to. Now we're going to take a new line where we're wanting the image gallery to appear, then click the plus symbol to the right, type the word gallery into this search box, and then click on the gallery block to add it. Then if we already have the images we're wanting to use uploaded to our site, we can click Media Library and select them there. Or if we're uploading new ones like I am, we're going to click Upload. Now we need to find the images on our computer, select them, and click Open. Then once they've been uploaded, we'll see that WordPress automatically creates the gallery for us with 3 columns. And the amount of rows will depend on how many images we've added. Then say we added an image to our gallery that we didn't mean to. To remove it, we just need to click on it, then click the 3 dots to the right of this menu, and click Remove Image at the bottom. And when I do this, we'll see the last 2 images are now bigger to take up the space. Then if we ever want to add a new image to our gallery, we just need to click on one of our current images, then click this icon to the far left of the menu that shows the 2 overlapping squares. And this is going to select the entire gallery. Now we're going to click Add in the menu above it. And here we can either choose Media Library or click Upload to add a new one. Then we're going to find the image on our computer, click on it, and click Open. And the new image will be added to the bottom of our gallery. Then if there's ever a point where we straight up want to replace one image with another, we just need to click on the one we're wanting to swap, then click Replace in the menu above it, and click Upload. Now we're going to find the image, click on it, and click Open. And we'll see the new image is now showing in place of the old one. Then once we're happy with the images in our gallery, if we want to change the order of them, we can click on the one we're wanting to move, and then use these left and right arrows in the menu above it to move it into the position we want. Then at this point, if we preview the page, we can see that our gallery is already looking pretty awesome, and all we've done is added our images. Then if we close out of the preview, we can go through some of the other options. So first, if we want to change how many columns we have in our gallery, we just need to click on any one of our images, then click the icon in the far left of the menu to select the gallery. And now if we look over to the right, we can change the number of columns using this slider. And we'll see that when we do this, the last row of the gallery will always change to fit the last of the images. But I'm going to put mine back to 3 as I think it looks best. Then underneath the columns slider here on the right, we have this switch labelled Crop Images. Now you might have noticed that all of our images were automatically cropped when we first created our gallery, and this is done so they all appear the same size on each row and have a more uniform look. Then if we turn this off, all of our images will go back to their original shapes. But I'm going to turn this back on for mine. Then under this we have Link To, and this is what will happen when someone clicks on one of our images. It's set to none by default, which means nothing will happen. Then we also have Attachment Page, which will link to a page on our site with the image embedded onto it. Then Media File will link directly to the image itself. And in a few minutes, I'll also be covering how to change this for each image individually as well as how to link images to a specific URL. Then under Link To we have Image Size, and I'm going to set mine to full size. Then under this we can change the background color of our gallery, and we can choose either a solid color or a colored gradient. Personally, I like the way it looked before, so I'm going to put mine back to white. Then the last thing we have here on the right is dimensions, which is the spacing in between each of our images. And if we change this, we'll see that it updates in the editor. Then if we want to put it back to the default spacing, we just need to click these three dots to the right and click Reset All. Then once we're done with the options here on the right, if we look at the bottom of our gallery in the editor, we can give it a text caption in here if we like. And then we can also add captions to our images as well. To do this, we just need to click on the image, and then we can type it in at the bottom where it says Add Caption. Then once we're done here, if we preview our page, we can see the image caption here under the image, and then we also have our gallery caption at the bottom. Then if we head back over to the editor and click on one of our images again, if we look over to the right, we have a few different options here as well. First, we have this box labeled Alt Text. This stands for Alternative Text, and it can help with our SEO. So because search engines like Google aren't able to see the actual images themselves, they rely on an image's alt text to try to understand what it is. So as mine's an image of a cat in a bowl, I might type something like a photograph of a cat in a glass bowl. Then under this we can also change the size of an individual image if we need to, and this will override the gallery size we set earlier. Then finally, we can use these last two options here to add a border to our images. So this first slider is going to change the width. Then if we click this box to the left, we can also change the color. But I'm going to put this back to default for mine. Then under this on the right, we can use the second slider to change the radius, and this is going to add a curve to the corners of our image. And now that we're done with these options, I just want to quickly cover how to link our images to different pages and URLs. So to do this, we just need to click on the image we're wanting to link, and click on this little chain link icon in the menu above it. Then here we can either choose media file or attachment page like before, or we can paste a URL into this box, and then click the enter icon to the right to add the link. Or if we're linking to a page or post on our own site, we just need to start typing the page name in here. Then when it shows up in this list, we can click on it, and then click the enter icon to the right to link it. And now when someone clicks on this image, they'll be brought to that page. And if we want the link to open in a new tab, we can click this down pointing arrow to the right and turn on this switch. Then the last thing I want to show you is that if we click on one of our images, and then click the second icon in this menu, we can choose Rounded, and this will change the image to have rounded edges. Or we can put it back by clicking Default. Then once we've gone through each of our images and changed any of the options we're wanting to change, we just need to update our page or post. And now when we visit it, we'll see that the image gallery is live on our site and it's looking awesome. So that's us now at the end, and that was how to add a simple image gallery on WordPress. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please give it a like here on YouTube to show your support. And if you've got the time, be sure to check out the video on screen now that'll show you how to hide the WordPress login page, and this is going to help make your website more secure against hackers and less vulnerable to attacks. Once again, my name's Marty from letsbuildwp.com, and thank you very much for watching my video.